right, what's up, guys? We should be starting up here for another day in the NBA. A joyous one as always. The most joyous time of the NBA season has come to Orlando because it's tanking season / rest your guys to get ready to the playoff season / who knows who we're even playing today's season. We have a lot to talk about. We will go game by game today to break down all the changes that have hit since the strategy show this morning, and there are a lot, but we'll talk about it as we go. I'm Chris Spags, joined again today by my Monday buddy, a man you have seen probably dominating you in a lot of tournaments across the DFS space in the NBA, really every sport since quarantine has started. His name's Ryan. You know him as Rynpak. How are you doing, Ryan?
Doing well, Chris. How are you doing? It's the blunder of a slate today with all the news that we have to be dealing with throughout the whole day. So see how that goes. But how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited. It's a big day here. It's always a big day at Awesemo where we always have so many sports going on. And of course, you should be subscribed and hitting that notification bell. But I'm glad I have you here, Ryan, because you are a man who's good around the fringes. And this is a slate who is as absolutely chock full of guys on the fringes that we're going to need to know about and figure out if we actually trust them or not. And we're going to get into it right after this. But first, let's give the quick plug. Of course, it is a SuperDraft show here. They are sponsoring all of our NBA content here on the YouTube channel, and they are the future of daily fantasy sports. And you should be getting them into your lives immediately, especially for their exclusive game mode multiplier. You could say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to pure lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your own dream team with countless lineup possibilities to let you experience daily fantasy sports the way that you want. SuperDraft offers contests for NBA, MLB, PGA, NASCAR, and MMA, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft today using the promo code Awesemo10, AWESEMO10, to get $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more, and $20 free if your first deposit is over $100. So go download SuperDraft in the App Store or play at superdraft.io, because it's SuperDraft. There are no limits, more winning. And we do have some free content going off today. The NBA strategy syllabus is free today, where all of our experts chime in, or as many guys are available in the morning to chime in there. A lot of great minds giving in their best cash game picks, their best tournament picks, the guys that they would fade on the slate, all the little granular details you want if you're a person who's dying for just the straight picks. That is available for you free today on the site, as are the MLB player projections and the NHL player projections. So if this NBA slate gets you tilting early, you got some ways to make some money, hopefully today, with MLB and NHL, both featuring a lot of great talents as hosts and people behind the scenes. Of course, Awesemo himself contributing projections and ownership projections for that. Those are free premium content pieces today, the player projections and the NHL player projections. So go check those out on the site. And let's get into it, Ryan, because we got to go game by game here, as I mentioned up top. And this first game is one that is going to be chock full of landmines, but one where thankfully we saw a little bit of what to expect yesterday, or actually maybe for the worst that we saw these guys go off. But Darius Bazley, Mike Muscala expected to have big days today because there are no bigs left for Oklahoma City. In addition to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander being out, we also have Danilo Gallinari out. We have Steven Adams out. We have Nerlens Noel out. And of course, Dennis Schroeder still remains out. So a lot of bodies missing here going against the Phoenix team that needs to win this game, Ryan. So let's make this an easy one up front. Who is the priority play for you on the Thunder amidst all these guys who are probably going to project well for wherever you're playing today?
Priority play on Thunder is tough. It's a situation where when I got the notifications of who's being ruled out, and when Adams Noel, just like yesterday, then they said Shai, then they said Gallo, and I was like, all right, CP3 is next, and CP3 hasn't been ruled out, and this is just puts it all up in the air. In terms of seeding wise, OKC is right now in fifth in the West. They're a half game over the Jazz, and and then they are just a game behind Houston. So it's really interesting what their motive is. Are they just trying to obviously preserve health, but looks like they're okay with playing whoever they want in that first round is my assumption, but I'm not too sure. So with that being said, I mean, they've lost Gallo and Shai on starting lineup and Adams. I mean, kind of expect CP3 to run the show for how many ever minutes he gets. And that's the question where I'm struggling to find an answer. I don't know how many minutes he's going to get. And this matchup's going to move. I feel like it's going to be a fast-paced matchup. And there's some other value options within OKC who I like quite a bit. Bazley and Muscala, people are going to jump to right away. But I think some guys who you could look to are someone who I personally like is Hamidou Diallo, someone who I think can strike an upside in this matchup if he gets the minutes, and he can definitely. I think he'll come in at the lowest ownership among the value right now. But that can all change depending on what the OKC starting lineup is, which probably will be announced sometime before tip off. But right now, I'd have to say Chris Paul and Hamidou Diallo, but I really like Basley and Muscala as well. For the amount of value there is on the slate, you can easily cycle them in and out your lineups today.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And yesterday I was talking to Ryan and Josh, who's producing the show for us today. Thank you, Josh, behind the glass there. But talking to these guys about yesterday, I was watching Josh's show with Zach Bruner in the morning. The news came in late that Adams was thought to be in, then was ruled back out. Noel was thought to be in, looked like the chalk play of the day. Then Adams coming back in, changed it, basically made the situation disaster. And the result was that Basley and Muscala were both very low owned. Both guys around 10% ownership, Basley even lower. I'm also switching between Basley and Basley, so just ride out with me because I honestly don't know which it is, even though I watched the game with him playing yesterday. And I think the announcers also did that and switched back and forth. But let's say Basley for now. Just a monster there, but also a guy who, a very, very small scale version of a dude we've talked about on here, TJ Warren. Warren's the bubble guy of du jour, but he's also been shooting unsustainable rates and people keep chasing him. Last time it paid off because he went 15 for 22. I think that's what Basley had yesterday, where he put up, I think it was 5 for 8 from 3. That's not the most likely thing to happen. He's been a good shooter on the year for a big man at 32%, but he's not going to shoot lights out like that. It scares me, though. The usage numbers are kind of reassuring. So I guess, Ryan, do you have a take here on Basley? And I guess, is there an ownership number where you start to get uncomfortable? Because him at 38% feels high. Muscala, too. I have his standard deviation as being 100%, which means he can give you 0 or give you what he normally gives you, or I guess theoretically double up what he does. I just don't trust these guys, and I'm still going to have them a lot. But for big tournaments, it just feels like a lot of risk, given that we're talking 40% ownership for Basley and about 25% for Muscala.
So the one thing in this situation is they just don't have the guys, right? And especially in NBA minutes, you feel some sort of confidence. And obviously, Basley came off the bench yesterday and performed really well. He outperformed Muscala and was slightly lower owned than him, I believe. So in this situation where they had missing a couple guys yesterday and they're missing 2 more today in Gilgeous-Alexander and Gallinari, I feel safe. And I feel like you can get different elsewhere in terms of trying to get to the top of the standings today. It just would be really tilting if Andre Roberson puts out a 40-point fantasy game, and that'd be really annoying. But I don't expect that to happen. But I think in terms of minutes, I feel like Muscala, Basley, Abdel Nader probably will get some additional minutes for sure. Diallo. I feel confident they'll all get a substantial amount of run, and what they do with that run, I feel like is going to be a very toss-up across the board. And on the other side of things, where the team has to win and who have been amazing throughout the whole bubble, and they're just going to go balls to the wall, in my opinion. I feel like you can definitely go heavy on Phoenix because you know what their motive is and you know what they need to do to get done. And they're probably going to play additional minutes than usual.
Yeah, the chance for Phoenix to make the play-in game still requires them winning every game, which they've done so far. So that's been looking good for them. But I agree, Booker and Ayton, I think on the other side, the safest plays. And I also want to just real fast before we close out Oklahoma City, I want to chime in on your thoughts on Diallo, because I agree. I think he's the guy under 10% projected ownership, a dual position eligibility for him as well. He's been a good guy in that second unit. And also just when he's had the opportunity to shoot on the air, he is shooting 45% from the floor. Not been great from deep, but he does contribute some rebounds, some assists, enough of that cross-category ability that I think will add some opportunity for him. I think he's got, a little bit better score. Maybe that's not fair, but a little better of a shooter than Troy Brown. But I think he has some of that similar ability just to give you that, give you a shot, maybe even a triple-double. But I think giving you like a 10-5-5 type of game if the minutes are there from him, and maybe a little more if the minutes are there from him in a big way. So Diallo is the guy I think that I agree with on Ryan's take there. A dude who seems worth having some exposure that we're seeing not being too highly owned thus far.
Yeah, I do think, sorry to interrupt, I think one guy who might get additional run, I know Terrence Ferguson had some sort of injury. He's someone who's been in the rotation in the past. So that's someone, if you want to get sneaky, he is the bare 3K today. So I know he's obviously people call him Turd Ferguson around everywhere. So you can take a shot with 3K, but it is a high risk play. There are some obviously safer plays within OKC.
Yeah, Ferguson, just a 0.39 fantasy point per minute guy on the year, though that does come with a lot of those starting minutes where he just kind of sits out there and doesn't do much and adds a little bit of defense before Luguentz Dort became that guy. Actually, Ryan, before we close it out here, are you getting any Dort? Because he's another guy, too, who's going to go unowned. And he's been trying to do more in the bubble for whatever reasons. He's been a little more active, still not a high upside guy, but he is another forgotten man here. So do you see yourself getting more than the field's 5% projected for Dort?
I probably will be ended up around the field and slightly above, going through some final tweaks. But we'll see with Dort. I feel like he's going to end up a little higher than that just because like people have seen his name. He's been low. He's performed much better than he has during the regular season. So, right, I mean, before the restart. I'm not sure. There's some other value, and especially in Dallas, that I like quite a bit. And I feel like there's more upside there than there is with Dort.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's close out the Phoenix side here. And again, we're going to go game by game. So we'll get to that Dallas part next. A lot of people talking about that in the chat, people wanting the Boban takes, which of course we'll do our best to give you guys at minimum prices for him across the industry. But rounding out the Phoenix interest, I certainly don't mind. You got to expect Oklahoma City's defense is going to take a downturn. We've talked about Booker and Ayton, but Ricky Rubio going to gain some assist upside theoretically, though Booker's usage has been up in the bubble. He's been above 34% every game besides the one against Indiana where they did clamp down on him a bit more. But Rubio can be a pivot away at a little bit less ownership, or maybe even in addition to these guys, given the fact that we expect them to play big minutes with Phoenix needing to get into that play-in game, and they need that win today. And Cam Johnson, Ryan's also been a popular play. I don't see myself getting to Cam today, but I think Booker and Ayton are two of the strongest players on the slate. But the rest of these guys, Rubio, Cam Johnson, and I guess also Mikal Bridges. Do you see yourself getting any of these guys in an appreciable way?
Yeah, I'm going to make sure to get a decent amount of DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker for sure. Those two I feel very safe with. And unless barring any injury, extensive foul trouble, they're going to have to run these two guys to win, and they need to win. Outside of that, I mean, you could look at Cam Johnson potentially if he were to hit a bunch of threes. Rubio is someone that I feel like his minutes haven't reached his full upside just because he's one of those guys who came late to the bubble, and they're probably being a little cautious with him. But I think there is an upside there, like you said. Obviously, Rubio has, in years past, has a triple-double upside and whatnot. He can do that. And in a position where they're going to need to win, I do like him. It's going to come down to he's in that Mike Conley price range on both sides, I believe. And Conley's playing without Mitchell. So there's going to be a decision to be made. Right now, currently, I have them projected very, very close. And I like having them both sprinkled in both spots, but Booker and Ayton are leading the way for sure. Mikal Bridges has been slightly disappointing in this bubble. He's at 4,900 on DraftKings. I expect him to play a decent amount, and he's one of those guys who can get there with peripherals only. So I don't mind him at 4,900. Cam Johnson, you really need him to really hit like 6 3-pointers and just pick up some extra rebounds that Ayton doesn't pick up, and then he can get there. I don't mind them. They're just because in the position they need to win, and they're going to trust their best players.
Yeah, Cam Johnson, I just feel like to close the book on him, the rebound rate for him is just pretty unsustainable so far in the bubble. He's been doing some of the Kelly Oubre role, and Oubre has been a pretty prolific rebounder overall, at least relative to what you'd expect for him as a wing. So I could get where Johnson has had that upside, but I just don't see him being a double-digit rebounder guy. I feel like that's been a bit fluky, and we saw last game when he doesn't get those rebounds, he just doesn't have that upside. So I'd be less inclined to chase there. There's so many other value plays on the slate. I just don't see why you'd want to go to Cam today. But I think that closes that one out. You guys hit the like button here because we have to talk about Dallas next. And quite frankly, we don't know how Dallas is going to go, relative to the many guards they have in the backcourt. And of course, Boban Marjanovic, you could be starting. So maybe we'll get a little more accurate, get a better shot at being right here if you guys hit the like button. I feel like getting us to 200 to help support here, to support the boys during this time where our brains are bleeding from all the different minutes machinations we have going on. So help us out and hit that like button. Let's go to Dallas at Utah here. As Ryan mentioned a second ago, there is no Donovan Mitchell, so that should add some upside to Mike Conley and his prospects today, as well as Jordan Clarkson, who his ownership, for whatever reason, hasn't taken the jump yet, but perhaps that's because there is a lot of guard value on the Dallas side. Trey Burke, we know he's had these upside days in the past across his various stops across the league, but still a guy who is new to the Dallas organization, was a bubble replacement guy. He's been good so far. He's been probably getting bigger minutes than you'd expect, but he hasn't had quite as much of an opportunity to show off that usage. We still have THJ in the mix. He's about a 29% usage guy without Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis today. Both guys out of the lineup, of course, alongside Dorian Finney-Smith, if you're not caught up on that news. So the new big three for Dallas is not there. THJ, I did force into lineups here because I think people always hate playing him, myself included. I got him. I got a lot of Burke. I got some Seth Curry. I got some Delon Wright, and I do have some Kleber. And of course, the big man Boban is the big question mark here. But let's go through the guards first, Ryan. Which guys do you feel comfortable with the most here relative to their ownership, where Trey Burke looks like he'll be the highest owned guy, but no Mavs player in this rotation from the backcourt will be under 20%, it looks like, ownership-wise?
Yeah. With that being said, I think this morning Brad Townsend of the Dallas Morning News tweeted out saying with Doncic, Porzingis, Finney-Smith out today, the Mavs games notes list probable starters as Hardaway Jr., Jackson, Marjanovic, Curry, and Barea. So this is another one of those things where obviously they're resting their two studs for sure. I don't mind Hardaway Jr., Jackson's cheap, Curry, and Barea, but out of those guys, I think I like Curry the best. I think they probably want him to get a little more conditioning. He did miss a game earlier last week with an injury, so I don't mind Seth Curry here. Hardaway Jr. can obviously he's one of those guys who's really hot. He can get going quite a bit. Barea is one of those. He's like been that emergency point guard role all year. Maybe gets extended run, but I'd rather, like you said, go to Trey Burke off the bench, and Delon Wright also is off the bench there as well. Both guys who I think will get substantial run just because of the amount of people who are missing. And you could go to Justin Jackson. I'm willing to get to all these Dallas guys in bits and pieces. Now into Boban Marjanovic. Obviously, everyone was tilted. I was tilted the last time out where he only played 5 minutes, and it felt like the right play going in. Obviously, things are different now. I mean, they're seemingly trying to wash this game away. I project him to somewhere in the 20 minutes, and obviously he can outperform that and get like 40 fantasy points the way Boban is. But I think this is a tough matchup, and I don't think he has done all that well against Gobert in the past. Mm-hmm. And I think Utah is in a position where they can, if they don't win, they could fall. I don't know if they can fall all the way to 7. I could be wrong, but they're currently in 6th. So it's I'm not sure exactly what Utah is doing with seeding. And Quinn Snyder had the quote saying their goal is to have everyone healthy and develop young players. But I think there is some merit to Utah winning this game. And in terms of Dallas, I'm willing to sprinkle all those guys in before we jump into Utah. But there's no one really. I don't have like 100% Boban take at all, just because I'm skeptical of what happened last time. But at that price tag, he can easily smash that, and he will be in the optimal lineup. So, what's your Boban take, Chris?
I mean, so I think the issue, and I agree, looking through the game logs, which are not always a perfect thing because there's motivation questions, there's coaching questions, with Rick Carlisle being pretty quick to a hook with Boban, same thing with his previous coaches. But if there's ever a game you would think that Boban can get the minutes, you would think it's against Rudy Gobert, a guy who's also big, kind of plotting, needs to be kept off the boards. And I don't see Maxi Kleber doing that. That said, if Boban does fail, it's probably a quick hook for them to go to Kleber. Maybe you go small with Kleber as a 5, or maybe even MKG. Like, there are ways you can get really weird here to try to make it different. I think those are the concerns I would have about Boban. That said, it seems like his ownership has stabilized at a somewhat reasonable level. Earlier in the morning, we had him projected to be about 50% owned. Cooler heads have perhaps prevailed in terms of that, and people being a little wiser for the reasons that Ryan mentioned, where we just saw Boban get the hook. Though against the Clippers team, who is going against Zubac, like, it's not the same thing as going against Gobert. To be 25% of Boban is about right. I just think, if we're looking at him versus Mike Muscala, another guy who's going to be chalky, I think the ceiling is probably higher for Boban, though the minutes are much more secure for Muscala. So for cash, I think it's Muscala. For GPPs, I'd be a little more inclined to get to Boban. That said, I just don't see the reason to get above 25% because we know the risks. We know that there's some chance. And there are, quite frankly, some ways that might make more sense to attack Utah with than going, big on big and hoping that that's the way it works out, because that's not always how coaches view things. But Ryan, I guess we'll ask this as an over-under question. If Boban's ownership is 25%, do you think you get over that or under that?
So just because he's a flat 3K, I'm willing to go over that. And maybe I'll have to see when I go through my first couple runs how like salary shows up. There is a scenario where he can be the highest scoring center on this slate where you'll absolutely need him. center is not that great. I mean, just running down center. I mean, you can play Davis, Jokic, and Ayton and Gobert, and then there's Adebayo. There is a slim chance that happens. I'm not saying it happens, but when he's priced at 3K, he really doesn't need to do much, but he can also burn you like we just saw. I'm willing to get over that 25%, but I'm not willing to like get 100%. There's like people are either like I feel like there's not many people who are going in between right now, but I'm willing to get over that 25%. I feel like the upside is there, and if they're going to let him run, he has shown obviously the upside Boban has is pretty monumental. I mean, I think the last like the game before the NBA shut down, he played 31 minutes and put up 57 fantasy points. So, and that was against Denver. And I'm not saying 57 fantasy points is likely, but I can see him in the path where if you were to pay 25, 30 minutes, he gets over 40 fantasy points today.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the risk, and that's why I would certainly not advocate for coming in too far under Boban. I think there is a risk reward here, and you have to really just look through if you look through the box scores. I mean, the times that he's had a big, slow-footed big man are few and far between. But that last time he got the start, he had a 37% usage rate and played 31 minutes against Denver and Jokic, and that's the best comp we have to Gobert. So I agree. I think it's worth taking that stab. The other times that he spiked an upside, like he didn't spike an upside against Memphis, though he did have a 52% usage rate in 4 minutes there. So I don't know. I think it's tough to fully trust, but I think it's just worth that risk. And that's the name of NBA DFS, especially at this time of year. If anybody's played DFS before, hopefully you have during the tanking seasons. The guys like Boban are the ones who break the slate and suddenly put up 75 fantasy points. And you're like, wow, I could not win the slate or even come close without him. So that's the risk and reward. The rest of the backcourt, actually, and I guess while we're talking the bigs, Maxi Kleber for you, Ryan, do you see him being a guy that you have a good amount of, given that you do expect to have a good amount of Boban exposure?
Yeah, with a good amount of Boban exposure, I guess I'll do my best to make sure Kleber doesn't appear in those Boban lineups. But at 4,200, if you were to come out and do his thing, there is a chance where they're both in the optimum. But they're more likely than not for him to outperform Boban. It's mainly because Boban got the yank from Carlisle. But I mean, I like Boban quite a bit. It's not like I don't want to like sink just because Carlisle yanks him type of deal. But at 3K, he can really do quite a bit. And there's other guys on Dallas. They have Kid Gilchrist and they have Antonius Cleveland as well. I don't know how many minutes they get, but it's all important to just keep an eye on starting lineups and just to make sure you pivot when you get those starting lineups. There's been a big edge in just doing that over the past few days. Just keep close attention to your phone and your Twitter feeds and making sure you make those adjustments properly. If there was, I know there were listed probable starters. If Tim Hardaway Jr. were for some reason to sit, get ready to make some odd changes, and there'll be a big edge just based on that.
No, that seems fair. And I guess one question here, which I think we sort of answered indirectly, but I'll ask you point blank in accordance with the people on YouTube want to know. If you had to choose Rynpak between Boban and Muscala, which one would you favor? And I guess give me the answer because I gave it the answer for cash and GPP. So if you want to give different ones for both, I think that's fair.
Well, I'd have to go with, I think right now, Boban, just straight up for me. But you get those two extra $100, and I'm sure there's enough studs where you can use those $200 extra dollars. I feel like, and alter your roster construction a little bit. So those $200 help, and I want to say Boban has a higher upside than Muscala, in my opinion. But and I feel like Muscala has a higher floor, but in terms of winning GPPs, you want that upside. And I don't hate using Boban in cash. I feel like he'll be very popular in cash today for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, I would favor Muscala and cash just because that ownership's going to be there for him and the minutes should be there for him in a meaningful way. But Boban, I agree for tournaments. I think the upside, I mean, Muscala, if he put up 30 fantasy points, you're probably stoked. If Boban, we could put up 50, like it's not crazy that he put up 50 if he did get that full run of minutes. He's a 1.4 fantasy point minute guy. Muscala is a 0.9 guy. It's a pretty big difference there between the two. So for tournaments, I do think it'd be go to Boban. And if you want to get a common look that's also going to offer a ton of salary, going Boban and Muscala on DraftKings, certainly a move that you can make. On the Utah side, Ryan, I'm intrigued by Rudy Gobert just because there is going to be that ownership going to Muscala. There's going to be that ownership going to Boban. And if those guys do both fail, Gobert's just going to give you a floor that I think, DeAndre Ayton's probably got a similar floor. Maybe Jokic, though his salary being that high, I don't know. Gobert does get a little more rebounding love too with Mitchell being out because Mitchell doesn't rip those boards and take it up the court quite as much. Gets up to about a 30% rebound rate for Gobert. So that gives me a little bit of a boost for his prospects as well. In addition to, maybe just getting a few more shots right at the rim for Mitchell, not being in there, taking the 31% usage that he normally does. But I think Gobert, Ryan, is like the safest play on the slate for me at center. And I think certainly a viable tournament move is just to get that 35 points from him and be like, all right, I'm safe now at this position. So how are you landing with Gobert? Do you think that's an approach you'd take, given the fact that he's now going to be about 33% projected ownership?
Yeah, I don't mind Gobert at all. I'm just curious why you think Gobert is safer than Ayton in terms of the safest center play. I'm just curious why you prefer Gobert in terms of being safe.
Just a little bit cheaper. And I actually, one guy was tweeting me about this and was talking about how he was just going to lock Ayton in because Oklahoma City missing Adams, missing Noel, like those are the big guys who do damage. We just saw Thomas Bryant not get off at all versus Oklahoma City because it is more of a defensive thing, the way they approach. They do slow it down a lot. People, I think, always think about, it's a pace up spot against Washington. It might be a pace up spot against Phoenix. But this time in the bubble, they've only shot 12.4 seconds into the clock, which is the lowest pace in the league. Just a different way to look at pace from a site that I use called unpredictable.com. That's a free one where you can check that relative to the usual ESPN pace factor stats of just possessions per game. But I think Oklahoma City can slow it down enough where Ayton just gets less possessions and at his price point. And earlier in the day, we had him at 50% projected ownership. Now we have Gobert being a bit higher. I guess it's, equations leveled out a bit in that front. But Gobert, I just feel like, he's safe. Ayton, I feel like, I don't know. It might be just a gut thing for me, but I'd rather have Gobert get that little bit of savings and just know my center position's okay. Whereas Ayton, maybe the Suns blow him out. Like there's enough risk here for me, and not that we're, predicting blowouts here. I just feel like there's less risk for Gobert given, the situation and what he's going up against.
That's fair. That makes sense. Other guys on Utah, they're playing without Donovan Mitchell. I know Quinn Snyder said they're trying to preserve health, but Conley at 6-1 without Donovan Mitchell, I do like that quite a bit. I know him and Chris Paul have played multiple times throughout their career, and I don't recall how well they've done it. Conley's playing against Dallas. I mistakenly read that. Conley going up against a G League Dallas team. I like Conley quite a bit at 6-1, and I think he can pay off that price tag pretty safely if he's going to get that full run today. That's the only question with Utah, in my opinion.
See, for me, I would rather have Jordan Clarkson being cheaper and knowing that he's going to get, on the year, he's at about a 31% assist rate or usage rate, rather, even playing alongside Conley with Mitchell off the court. And even if Clarkson doesn't start and he plays at 25 minutes, there's just nobody else here who can really get a bucket besides Conley. And, maybe Joe Ingles, though Joe Ingles doesn't really get as much of a boost for Mitchell being off the court as I would have thought. I don't know. I think Clarkson is the guy I would want the most out of the Jazz besides Gobert. I did get some Conley. I don't mind it, but we have him now at 35% ownership. And, if the young guys do play more, I think Conley's at the biggest risk, whereas Clarkson still technically qualifies as a young guy. They need him out there, I think, to create some shots in that second unit. So I would favor Clarkson at, about half of the ownership. It looks like actually less than half the ownership. But do you have a lean there, Ryan, between Conley and Clarkson? Because I know you said you're bullish on Conley, but at that much ownership difference, I think Clarkson is a pretty viable move.
Yeah, I know you do bring up a good point with that. Yeah, I don't mind that Clarkson and saving that $1,100. Clarkson's going to come in there and he's taking above, I think, want to say more than 13 shots every game of the bubble. He is very scoring dependent. Based off that, it'll be interesting to see how the rotation ends up to shake out without Mitchell, because he was questionable last game. He ended up playing and played really well against Denver. So we'll see what ends up happening. But yeah, I like Gobert. I like Conley, and I like Clarkson. You could get to Joe Ingles. That is a high. It's much more riskier play, but I think that's more of a FanDuel play than it is DraftKings.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Ingles' price a little bit weird at where it is, and maybe you see a little bump in usage, but the biggest gains that Ingles get is when Conley's off the floor and he gets that assist bump. Not going to get that quite as much with Mitchell, knowing what he does, which is just shoot the ball recklessly over and over and over again. So that's going to be, I think, more of a Clarkson spot, but we'll see here. And I guess, Emmanuel Mudiay lurking perhaps in some capacity at 3,100 as a pivot to all the other value guards out there. Ryan, do you see yourself getting any Mudiay at all, given the fact that he's going to be 1% owned?
Yeah, some news that we can touch on later. Giannis was just ruled out
Oh,
because of
okay.
his tooth. So uh, you could now make your adjustments accordingly, depending on who else gets ruled out. But this will be a massive upgrade for
This is unbelievable. All right.
everyone else. So
We got that one next. So let's get into it. So one of my takes on the day was I didn't want a lot of Giannis because I felt like the value was going to make people go to him. He's the safe play. He's, even if you have some questions, nickel and diming his minutes, which I've had, he did show up in a big way in that Saturday night game versus Dallas, played the full run of minutes against Dallas there. I feel like that wasn't going to be the case here against Toronto. And I guess now we're seeing it. Toronto on a back-to-back. These two teams likely to play, or at least have a good possibility of playing in the playoffs. It's not that marquee game. It's a middle of the day game here. So I think there's a risk to Milwaukee. I would have said this, damn it, I had such a great take. I was going to, if we got this 5 minutes earlier, I would look like a genius. But Giannis, we had him projected at 53% ownership. Obviously, the easiest move to make right now, if you are trying to just hustle in some lineups, would be to swap in LeBron at a little bit cheaper. I still don't trust, like we've in this past, we've had, Middleton, Bledsoe going off. I think Bledsoe is already on the cusp of playability for me. His minutes should still continue to be around high 20s because he's still getting into that game shape. Middleton, though, like, would it shock you if we saw Sterling Brown get some run here or DiVincenzo or some of these other guys who do soak up those minutes when Middleton isn't being played at his full capacity? I think there's some legitimate question marks in this game, Ryan, even before we get to the Giannis being out part. So how
yeah,
are you going to handle this? Because the move is in the past been locking Middleton, locking Bledsoe, and Giannis is out. And I think the motivations for this game are about as questionable as any of them on the slate.
yeah. So both of these teams are locked up in their seating. Milwaukee's going to be 1, and Toronto's going to be 2, and they're going to be playing Brooklyn as a 7 seed. That's for sure. And we just got a bunch of Toronto news as well. They just listed questionable for Lowry, Van Vliet, Ibaka are all listed as questionable now. So there's going to be some merit to just waiting on some lineups and trying to see what Toronto does with their starting lineup and taking that value in that game, just because you'll get a massive ownership discount right now. So that's the thing with Toronto. And also, in terms of Giannis being out, I have a feeling he's not going to be the only one out now. Just because we got to wait on the starting lineup. But if he's out, I like Bledsoe because they're just trying to ramp up his minutes, trying to get him conditioned quite a bit. Budenholzer has said that over the past few days. He wants Bledsoe to get fully conditioned. And I like Middleton if he's going to get that full run without Giannis. And now that Giannis is out, guys, you can look off the bench. Are DiVincenzo, Connaughton's probably going to get an extra run. Maybe Ilya Silva, if you want to go there, or Marvin Williams. But there's some other value that I feel more confident in the earlier games. But the Toronto value is going to be you're going to get them at quite a bit low on if all three of those guys are out.
Yeah, and I guess the question now, because I'm encountering this as I make some swaps, and this is sort of an overarching game theory question, but how much money are you want to leave on the table today, Ryan? Because I think you can make lineups taking this value and you can leave like 2K on the table and still have lineups you feel pretty good about, especially if you want.
Definitely
Yeah.
feel very comfortable than most days to leave money today. I think there is a good chance we're leaving 2K on the table works. You can do that quite a bit on FanDuel just because play that position by position. But DraftKings almost I tried not to leave that much money on the table, but today I'm in a 5-game slate. You can leave some money for sure, and it's important to keep in use. So Jeremy Grant has now just been ruled questionable as well. So important to late swap. Important to stay on top of the news. So I think you'll be on the green side of the cash line if you stay on top of the news today and for the rest of the week. So that's probably the best way. And there's going to be people who play players that are not playing. We've already noticed that, especially in some showdown slates. Like Adams, I think, was in the mid-20s yesterday. So you should make sure to stay on top of news and you'll be profitable over the week.
Yeah, that is definitely an important thing to consider in every day, but especially right now. We see it time and time again at the end of the year, and now we are getting it in peak form where this is going to be It's going to be a fun one here down the stretch. But as Ryan mentioned, just keep your eyes on the news because some of the stuff can change throughout the day, especially the trickle down effect. Like that Giannis news came out, and then within minutes, we saw the Toronto news. So some reactive plays there. And oh boy. All right. We got
Probably
some.
gave each other a phone call. Nurse probably called Budenholzer. Hey, look, don't play Giannis. I'm not going to play my guys. So.
Like, hey, like we're going to see you guys again soon. Take it easy tonight. We'll take it easy. No issues here. And I get that. But man, this is going to be a weird one. We got some questions here I'm going to hit on before we get through the rest of the games. XXX Achilles XXX asking, where does Boban rank against Muscala and Basley? We talked about that a little bit earlier, but we'll hit it one more time for the folks because there may be some new people coming in. Ryan, how would you rate Boban relative to Muscala and Basley?
In terms of upside, I think I want to say Boban has the highest upside. Muscala the safest floor, and Baisley just comes in between them. So I would go Boban, Baisley, Muscala. Muscala and Baisley are very close to me, but I think in terms of like smash that price tag, I'm going to have to go with Boban. I know it's a risk, but I feel like if there's like people who are scared to play Boban, I feel like it's a good time to just go back and pass the people who are scared.
No, I think that's fair. And yeah, playing Boban, certainly a move you can make to open up value to not play Giannis. So keep that in mind too. Other question in the premium Slack, thoughts on fully fading CP3. I don't hate it because of the back-to-back and the fact that he did play a good run of minutes and the fact that all the other guys are out. That said, I'm not full fading CP3. I think the upside for him is gigantic. His limited sample size usage rates, he jumps up to, I think, 30% usage and like a 55% assist rate in limited court time. Like he's going to do everything. Even if he doesn't shoot that much, he's still going to be setting up the Diallos and all these other guys. So Ryan, I assume you're on the same page, but you wouldn't full fade CP3, would you?
Yeah, it depends on how many lineups you have. If you have like a minimal amount of lineups, if you're like three to five lineups, I'm okay with fading it. Once you're getting around the 10 lineups, I feel like you should include some CP3 just because he could just run the show for how many ever minutes he's on there, and he can just get there in a hurry. Just because there's like I feel like he can get there in so many different ways. He can get there steals, he can get there assists and points for sure without Gallo and SGA. But I would be cautious against a full fade.
And last question before we get back to the last two games, a little late, but the best DK cash plays amongst the studs. Lori in the premium Slack is worried about the minutes. I mean, I think now the only one that I would trust fully in terms of stud pricing would be LeBron. I guess if we're going to go down, we talked about Booker and Ayton. Those guys have to win today. They need to get minutes. But in terms of like the guys, there's only one, I think there's only one guy now you could play 10K or above on DraftKings, and that's LeBron. So I think it's LeBron. I'll just have probably way more LeBron than I would like. But Ryan, do you see any other stud type guys you feel like are particularly safe and cashy?
Do Booker and Ayton count as studs? I mean, they do on this slate, I feel like. And then another thing is interesting is Denver wins out. They are the 2 seed. You could go to Jokic, but be cautious. I don't know how bad they want that 2 seed. It really depends on what that matchup they're trying to eye and who they want to play. Yeah, I don't know if Denver wants to play Das. That's for another conversation for another day. But it's going to be interesting what they want to do. If they win out, they get the 2 seed. So the motives are going to be up in the air.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And, Denver, I think too, there are some other questions about some of the guys there and how things are changing with some of the people getting back in the lineup. So, let's talk about this game because we still don't know the Indiana news. Maybe we'll get lucky and TJ Warren's questionable status will be updated here before lock. But Denver, I'm curious your thoughts here because I think now with the money, people may get to Michael Porter Jr. a bit more. Feel like he and TJ Warren are the two guys who obviously going off in the bubble, but people very willing to chase their price jumps. And Warren, I think, showed us the downside of that, where if he's not shooting 15 for 22, he's going to be able to not get that even 40 fantasy point landmine, or to that marker rather, and can be a landmine. Porter, I think, is the same thing. Like I was off of him last game because of Murray being back in the mix. He got there in double overtime, but if you have to play double overtime to get to where you need to get at your price point, I just don't think Porter's a good play today. And I think people may get there because they're just going to have the money laying around. So where do you land on Porter with his salary being where it is in this matchup against the Lakers? And again, with the Denver squad that's getting a little healthier, though, I guess Jeremy Grant could change that equation if he's out.
Yeah. It's crazy as it sounds. Porter might just get there in terms of a raw points standpoint, the way the slate has been shaking out. In terms of that $700 price difference between Ward and Porter, I'm gonna I feel like you could do something with that $700 still with all this value that we've been presented with us today. In terms of Denver, Jamal Murray came back into the picture and he played really well against Utah last time out. I feel like they want him to get conditioned. I don't mind him at 7-1. Jokic, price at 9-1, has played the Lakers twice this year. He had a high of 53 fantasy points in 37 minutes. He has, in terms of if they want to win out, I feel like he can easily be the highest scoring player of the day. If Malone decides to go like, hey, this is going to be the next 2 games we win out, and then you're just going to rest. Then he can easily be one of the highest scoring players on the slate, and you're going to need the highest scoring player on this slate to win the money for sure. So he's one of he's in this game. There's a potential of those 3 guys being the highest scoring players in Jokic, Davis, and LeBron. It just depends on if they are willing to get that full run.
Yeah, no, I think that does seem like a fair take there. And people also asking if you would go LeBron or AD, E-Ball in the premium Slack asking that question. I would favor LeBron. I think I just AD's kind of been slumming it lately, and that doesn't matter that much. I also have LeBron projected for a little better raw points, and clearly the salaries aren't a factor now. I would favor LeBron by a good margin here, Ryan. But how do you feel about AD going against Denver? Is he a play that you would want over LeBron?
Yeah, I'm always I like playing Anthony Davis over LeBron. I always feel like I get an ownership discount. And I feel like they're gonna want him to if they're gonna rest like one of the final few games, I feel like they want to give him a little confidence booster after the last game's 3 for 14 performance. He did play 35 minutes last time, so I feel like there's a good chance this might be the last all systems go, and then let's rest everyone else for the rest of the year. Even though Vogel has said he's not going to rest anyone, I feel like the minutes will be limited going forward. Anthony Davis is one of those guys, if he plays 25 minutes, he can put up 50 fantasy points. And I don't mind it against Denver today. So, and in terms of right now, LeBron also played 35 minutes last game. I personally, I would prefer Anthony Davis over LeBron. I feel like I will get some sort of ownership difference.
Okay.
And hopefully that should be enough to pass that.
No, I think that's a fair way to look at it too. And I also think LeBron will be the easier swap for people who are just like, oh, I don't want to deal with this again after I had Giannis in all my lineups. So I think that does give you some logic in going to Anthony Davis over him. But I think on a pure projection basis and just the motivations, I mean, I think we saw it last game with LeBron responding, and there's been some weird media inklings going on around him where one of the reporters asked what's wrong, and then he was like, oh, whatever, I can't talk about it, but nothing's wrong. Or I think it was backwards. He actually intimated that something was wrong, and the reporter slipped him a note and was like, hey, is this what's wrong? And LeBron's like, yes, but then wouldn't reveal it. I don't know what his deal is. He's so dramatic sometimes, but I think that is where LeBron, the motivation's there for him, whereas AD, I think we saw last game, I feel like the motivation is not quite as high for AD right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also, just
stuff,
keep an eye on news. I know they've been listed as probable to play, but just keep an eye on news. Things can change in a matter of minutes, as clearly we've seen over the last 10.
Yeah, Ryan, you're learning all the joys. I guess you've done this before enough times, but the joys of live before lock here as everything breaks. always truly unique.
This is and there's some pivots off of Boban ownership if you can look at. Depends on what they end up doing with who starts in Rondae Hall, Jefferson, and Chris Boucher. There are some pivots there if you're willing to for people who are willing to wait and fade Boban. So those are some options if you want to look in the Toronto game. Sorry, I jumped back a little bit. I was looking at Toronto and see what could happen.
No, that's fair. And if anybody has any questions, drop in the premium Slack or the YouTube channel. And yes, I do say somebody Baldy in the oath in the YouTube chat. I do say that's fair. That's usually whenever I either stopped paying attention or got distracted by something and then had to jump back. That's my default. That's fair. So now you know my weakness. That's when I say it. Indiana, Miami, a game we should talk on as well. Jimmy Butler going to have some ownership here coming back into the lineup. He and Goran Dragic did practice in full yesterday, so both guys going to be back in and going to theoretically at least harm the Tyler Herro value that's been there the last few days. All the Miami Heat players, Andre Iguodala, the guys that we've gone to over about the last week or so. Indiana side, as I mentioned earlier, TJ Warren still questionable. But I think the assumption is he's going to go. He's clearly having the best time of his life in the Orlando bubble. And as I previously speculated, perhaps being quarantined away from social pressures and maybe women, he's got the legs of a boxer now, where the old adage is always that you want to stay away from any sort of social activities if you're a boxer. TJ Warren's got the freshest legs he'll ever have, perhaps in the bubble. But still, I don't see getting to him today. I do see getting to some Brogdon. I do see getting to some Aaron Holiday. On the Miami side, I think it's Butler, maybe Dragic for me, but not, or Dragic for me. Not a lot of love on that side. But Ryan, what are you getting out of this game, if anything? And are you getting any TJ Warren? Because people are dying to play him, even though, as we talked about, he's just not going to shoot as insanely as he has in the bubble so far.
I feel like TJ Warren is going to be like the people who are like casual, very like the first time like DFS players. I feel like he's going to get a lot of ownership from those people. But 8,400, that's a lot. You're going to be asking for him to like do what he did for the first 3 games again. I'm more inclined to take Jimmy Butler on the other side, save $1,200. And I would project Butler to score more fantasy points right now, the way things stand. But in terms of Indiana side, right now I'm not getting much of Indiana. They are just sprinkled in sparsely just because I feel confident with some other value plays on this slate, especially with Milwaukee, what's going on without Giannis, OKC. So there's just, I feel, better options. And it's, I feel like in that situation, and I don't need to get that cute just to get ownership. I feel like I'm content with making the raw points decision just because I feel confident that these guys are going to get it done for me.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm with you on the same page there. Yeah, I mean, I would really just stick to the guys who project well on paper for me. And again, I would really just advocate, this happened with Gary Trent the other day too, though. People were really happy about that guy getting 5x, even though he just, not where you need to be in a tournament. But these guys who are just shooting unsustainably well, I feel like it's one of those basic DFS things, but because we're in this different situation, the bubble, certainly unique dynamic, and things change, and guys had some time off, and clearly some guys are coming out a little more aggressive. Just watch the rates, watch the shooting rates, the usage, the assists, all that stuff, because like Gary Trent's been shooting, I don't mean to harp on him because he's been fine. He's been good. He's been hitting a lot of shots, but still a 16% usage rate guy. Like don't fall for these traps of guys who are either have the same usage rate or just shooting 70% from the floor. Like it's going to come down. And when it does come down, you don't want to be the one left holding the bag, especially on a slate with a lot of value around. Like that can blow up really poorly, I think.
For sure.
Let's see here. Any good questions? I got some questions in the premium Slack. We'll keep going through. Keegster asking thoughts on Ersan Ilyasova now that Giannis is out. I think, let me see. I haven't adjusted my minutes loads on this because this all came pretty fast, but damn it, that was a series of bad phrasings. But I don't see myself getting to Ersan. I do think that I would prefer going to Middleton and Bledsoe here because I don't think they'll get enough ownership in the time window we have. But Ryan, how do you feel about Ersan? And I guess also how much Middleton and Bledsoe do you think you'll have here in your final optimizations?
I will, right now, I'm going to make sure to get significantly over the field because I think with that news coming in, like, I want to say 20 minutes before lock, there'll be some advantage. Ilyasova, I don't know, because since Marvin Williams came into the picture, they haven't been playing him as much as they used to. So I project, I mean, I think Ilyasova will get to the high teens for sure in minutes, and Marvin Williams can get to the low 20s in minutes around there. So based off that, I'm less inclined to play Ilyasova, but there are just other players I would rather want to get to. I mean, I prefer like the Denver value. I mean, sorry, the OKC value in Basley and Muscala over Ilyasova and Marvin Williams.
No, I think that's an appropriate take as well. And yeah, Ilyasova, I do think we've seen it in the past where he gets that opportunity bump, but he's one of those guys who's an older player, so he's kind of in the middle ground here where maybe he doesn't get quite as much minutes because you want to keep him fresh as the Giannis backup heading into the playoffs. But I think for me, he just feels like a riskier play, as Ryan mentioned, compared to some of the other value guys we know who are going to be locked into those minutes. Ersan, maybe I don't know, like DJ Wilson, I think he's still available. Like he can get some minutes. There are ways that they can get away from Ilyasova that I think some of these other value guys probably won't have. There's a question in the YouTube chat, which I think is a good one. And this is very much speculation because Toronto, we don't actually know who's actually going to be in the mix for them yet. A lot of guys went questionable after the Giannis news, him being ruled out. But who would be the biggest beneficiary to you, Ryan, if we assume, let's say, Lowry, Van Vliet, I don't think Siakam didn't get marked questionable, right? So Siakam should still be in.
Yeah, Siakam and Norman Powell stand out to me right away.
Yeah.
In terms of like they can be phenomenal without those guys on the court. Other guys that you could consider on Toronto are Terrence Davis. If someone else were to get ruled out as well, he's an option as well. He's someone who has had some upside games off the bench in some previous games. But in the front court, I would take a look at Boucher and Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. Some sources have said Gasol is going to rest today. Keep an eye on that news. I do. It's a back-to-back. I feel like he will rest. So if he's gone and Ibaka's gone, look to Boucher, look to Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, in my opinion. And depend on OG Anunoby is another option. He's just one of those guys who I've never been able to get correctly, so I'm always he's in my do not roster list. But I wouldn't mind getting some shares of OG.
No, that's fair. And I think Powell to me is a guy who jumps out as a, also that was an actual, I was paying attention. So that was that's fair of me paying attention. But that's accurate, Ryan. No, I think Powell's a guy we've seen in the past. He dies for these moments that he can get finally to chuck up recklessly. And he's actually gotten much better results of that this year than in previous seasons. The guy's shooting 49% from the floor. He's actually been, I'm actually surprised seeing this now. Powell's shooting 39% from deep, and like he's got a lot of things going for him that, you know, Milwaukee's going to certainly dedicate some attention to him, but defensively they're going to lose a good amount here without having Giannis in the mix. So Powell's at a price point that I think makes him very sneaky. So Powell's a guy that I would try to get to. And you know, Siakam's certainly capable of doing more, but you know, the motivation for him a little more questionable, whereas Powell certainly looking for a moment like this one. Johnny Sniper in the chat saying, I guess, incredulous that I would say we should fade TJ Warren because it's a head-to-head matchup for the 4 seed between Indiana and Miami. First of all, did not say to fade Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler to me is a play that I have a lot of today, so I didn't say. I don't know why you're getting that one. But TJ Warren, it's still a price question. It's not about him having the upside. It's that if Jimmy Butler defends him well and he shoots 12 for 22 instead of 15 for 22, you're done. Like that's it. That's on this slate. You are done. And I think that's sort of the issue with playing TJ Warren. Butler's still at a good price. Going to be owned though, but I think that's sort of where it goes. Where you know, I just don't trust the TJ Warren thing overall, and I don't trust the Porter Jr. thing. I think these guys have some worse days coming, especially as for Porter, where the usage starts to move around a bit. Let's see here. Any good questions? Why was Porzingis reported healthy on some sites? Because he's healthy. I think he's resting. He's not like hurt. No good question.
Yeah, just keep an eye on news. Also, just be cautious with Budenholzer. I mean, they have the 1 seed locked up. Immediately, Bledsoe and Middleton do stand out. There is obviously a non-zero chance that they don't get full run and they yank the starters at halftime like they did against the Nets. So just be careful. Even though Giannis isn't out, doesn't mean just go and slam in the Bucks players.
Also, so much news for tomorrow already coming with all the Pelicans being out, James Harden out. Well, oh boy. All right. People asking about Ayton being out. Ayton is not out. I don't know who reported. Maybe FanDuel's lineups, I think, are saying that is what we're saying. Ayton's in. There's nothing about Ayton being out.
Yeah.
And I think Josh made this point yesterday on the Sunday stream. Jason Roslin, our golf guy, just came into the chat, so that's why the video got weird for a second. I don't know why. He's excited to play it, to do some PGA talk, I think. but no, Ayton is in, and this was a point that Josh mentioned yesterday. Don't trust your DFS providers to give you your injury news. That is something that's important, and he likened it to being like asking the casino how you should play blackjack. I don't know that it's quite like that because they do have their media enterprises. They're trying to do that part, but they're certainly not going to be as attentive as some of the sites out there. Schmantasy Schmab's a good lineup site. A lot of ones out there that we all know and use. Don't trust your DFS site for that. They make mistakes. They have people who are also, quite frankly, stretched really thin with all the sports going on, except for SuperDraft, of course, where things are always operate flawlessly and perfectly all the time at superdraft.io. But no, it's don't trust your DFS sites.
There are going to be some juicy multipliers today, so make sure to take advantage of that.
Actually, you know, it's worth, we love SuperDraft, and with the chaos, there's, as Ryan mentions, there's a lot of opportunity, and With a lot of the bigger players sometimes focusing on the main sites, there can be even more of an edge going to a site like SuperDraft today, where people are going to be too busy trying to fix their lineups. And Chris Middleton at a 1.3x multiplier looks pretty good on SuperDraft. He's a top 6 play according to Awesemo. Rudy Gobert, a guy who I mentioned liking on DraftKings, he looks pretty good as well, 1.45x. Michael Porter Jr., a little more playable on SuperDraft with a 1.65x multiplier for him. And Trey Burke at a 2x, which is some of the top plays today, according to Awesemo. So go play at superdraft.io and use that promo code Awesemo10, AWESEMO10 to get $10 free with your deposit of $10 or more. If you deposit $20 or $100 or more, rather, you get $20 free. That's instant release money that comes to you right away. So play on SuperDraft at superdraft.io or by downloading SuperDraft in the App Store. Well, these questions are tough to answer in a quick minute here, but got 5 minutes left to lock, guys. So get your stuff in, and keep in mind, if you need to keep some flexibility for your lineups, the game going off first is Oklahoma City and Phoenix. So maybe you lock in your guys that you like in that game and build around that, and try to take advantage of the rest of the news that'll come out. Let's see. Ryan, anything you're seeing in your crunches so far that are surprising you based upon what we've talked about?
I'm still getting a fair amount of OKC value. Just trying to lower it so I can have some more flexibility. This is what I'm trying to do right now. Let's see what's coming up.
I'm searching for DeAndre Ayton because people are saying he missed a COVID test, but I don't see that anywhere.
Well, we did get an update on Rubio, Booker, Bridges, Johnson, Saric are the Suns listed starters. They're going to update on Ayton. Oh my God.
Well, that
game starts. Oh,
that has not been reported by anybody. That Ayton's not playing at all. I'm going through everything, and the beat reporters got nothing. Here we go. Okay, so here's one of the beat reporters saying, a Suns blogger who does AZ Sports' coverage, saying that Ayton's out of the starting lineup, Saric is in, and that's from the Suns team Twitter. But there's still no reason why he's not in the starting lineup given.
Oh, that's quite interesting. I'm going to play it safe and swap my Ayton to Gobert, but that is too.
Yeah, I'm also going to do a quick global swap. So yeah, now guys, we are all panicked because normally I gave that FanDuel take and I stand by it, but this is not great because nobody has reported it yet. So I would say good time to get your Ayton out would be the move. I'm going to fix this when we get off the show, but let's see, NBA. Jesus Christ. Ryan, what a show, huh?
This is wild.
You know what? I'm just going to go to Porter Jr. everywhere I can. Will be my move. That is not enough of this. Guys, you get to see the process here firsthand for Ryan and I. So enjoy the all the things that you can learn from seeing people panic in front of your eyes. Pascal Siakam. Done. All right. Any Ayton left? All right. I got rid of my Ayton, so I'll deal with that in a second. Swapping to Siakam is what I just did on DraftKings, so keep that in mind. Ayton not officially in the starting lineup as we're finding out here. And sorry, guys, for having to update all the news, but this is what happens this time of year, as I warned you guys. And as one of our old friends might say, maybe a day to consider lowering your bankroll or raising it based upon your confidence levels. That is always an option here on some of these slates. And honestly, probably play more Booker would be a move too to consider. Let's see, anything good here in the Slack? Looking at everything to see if you guys have anything good now that I've solved my problem as Ryan tries to solve his. Thunder lineup is out. Thunder starting Paul, Nader, Dort, Baisley, Muscala. So Abdel, Nader getting the bump up for him. And don't know if that'll matter too much. I'm still a Diallo guy, but just for your edification out there. Sarge looks like a good play, somebody asking. Still would prefer the other value guys, but yeah, you could certainly go to Sarge now. And honestly, Bridges and Johnson a little more reliably too. God damn. 1 minute left to lock. So if you have not found your DeAndre Ayton fixes, do them now. Do them now on whatever site you're on, because otherwise you're going to be screwed, and we don't want that for you. So make sure you are doing your swapsies as much as you can. Global swap would be the move that I would suggest that I just did. Global swap to Siakam and figure it out later is my approach. So just FYI for you guys out there. And if you did get your swaps in, hit that like button because we're dying. This is one of those. We have these shows a lot here on Live Before Lock. It's the last week in the bubble, and things are going to be catastrophic, it seems, for many of these days. Gobert or Bam? Johnny is asking. I would favor Gobert. Ryan, do you have a lean between Gobert and Bam?
I will do probably Gobert right now, just with Butler out.
Yeah. Butler being back in there, going to drive down a bit of an assist upside for Bam, and that's something that I tend to find valuable for him. So yeah, there you go. Hopefully you guys got your swaps in though, because now we are locked. And God, I got to do. We don't normally stay on after the show anymore to do the ownership game, but I have to see how much Ayton was owned. I got to know.
I don't know if I pulled off the full global swap either, so we'll see how much I have.
On the app, it sucks for like I'm only playing DraftKings today, and I did the global swap on there to Porter Jr. real fast, and it was like, yeah, that's fine, and we got everybody. And then I went to the desktop, and it still kept everybody in. So if you're doing a global swap, I would very much advocate using the main desktop site for DraftKings in particular, because it just does not work as well on the app. All right, here's the shoot around. I'm going to check ownership, and then we'll get off.
DeAndre Ayton missed coronavirus testing Sunday. Won't start Monday.
There you go.
So what does that mean?
So he might still play. It depends though. If he tested negative again, I think he'd have to get 2 tests negative, right? Oh my, DeAndre Ayton, 32% owned in the big DraftKings tournament.
Oh my God. I mean, I still have a decent amount of him, so it is what it is.
Boy, occupational hazards, guys. So sorry that we couldn't get that news as fast as we could. We got it over to you guys as soon as we could confirm.
It's just, yeah, that news was very, I want to say like, it was obviously a lot different than everything else, because we would have already heard that much earlier. I feel like if he was hurt due to some sort of injury, right?
Yeah, I mean, injury we would have known at 8 a.m. East or Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, and instead we do not. So, boy,
are they really doing a disciplinary thing where like?
No, I think he's not qualified to play, so he might not be available at all. I don't know why it's listed that way. Yeah.
Wow.
All right. Well, hopefully you guys got it working again. People saying the DraftKings app didn't work. Use the website. I just keep that in mind for the future. If you got screwed today, I'm sorry. We tried our best to make sure we don't give out news either until we confirm it, because we want to make sure we're right here. We will speculate and whatever, but we don't want to fuck people over who are half paying attention. So hopefully you guys got helped a little bit by us getting it in there. Hopefully you made your global swaps. Play some baseball. Would be what I would suggest. Their lineups have been coming out hot and early, and you know what? Player projections are free today at Awesemo. So you know what? I'll drop the link to the MLB player projections, so you guys can check that out and hopefully salvage something there. Watch the Live Before Lock show later today. Here, links in the YouTube chat. These are free today, so play some MLB. We tried our best. I'm sorry. I hope you all survive as best you can. Ryan, any plugs you want to hit on before we call it quits?
Keep attention to news and try to have your swaps ready to go. I unfortunately get burned a little bit, but hopefully I can make some pivots and still find a way to recover from this Ayton. How do you miss coronavirus testing during a pandemic in the bubble? I don't know. Well, he pulled it off, so we'll see what happens.
It's brutal. Either way, we got some people off of Ayton. Thank God. All right. We appreciate you guys. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, watch all the content coming up. PGA, MLB, NHL, everything we were talking about. MMA, again, big fight this weekend, or a big card this weekend, rather. So just check it all out and pray for yourselves. If you're playing NBA, watch the news, as Ryan mentioned. Hit the like button before you go. We'll see you guys again soon. So good luck, ?